It's easy to find critics of Israel. Your family moved here, you've stayed here, you've thought about it. Can you say why it is it's good for Israel, Jews, to be here in Israel, in this place?
In my family history, it was very clear that Jews had no hope in Europe in the early 1920s. That's why they've left. They felt that with the rise of nationalism in Europe, there was no room for them, and that they needed to move. But actually, the more Orthodox Jews did not want to move, and they've stayed there, and most of them were slaughtered at the Holocaust. So that made it even more clear that if we don't have a state of our own at the national birthplace of our nation, of our religion, then we might not even survive physically, let alone spiritually or culturally. But for my family, they came to Israel even prior to all these calamities that happened to Jews in the 20th century. They felt that this is our destiny to live here as people, and they did not come here to move anybody out. They came here as people coming back to their home from which they were thrown 2,000 years ago.
So they still felt like after 2,000 years, this was home.
Definitely. Even the secular Jews and secularized Jews, they felt this was their home. This is really the way Jews felt about themselves for 2,000 years when they did not live here. We pray 3 times a day to Jerusalem at the end of the Seder, of the most important ritual, family ritual that we do in our lives on Passover. We end that festive meal with a statement, next year in Jerusalem.
Can you say that in Hebrew?
L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim. Now we're approaching that season. So it's something that is so embedded in the identity of every Jew, whether secular, whether Orthodox, whether ultra-Orthodox, Reform, Conservative. This was such an intuitive thing for them. There's no room for us in Poland, so we're going to the land of Israel. This is where we should go. And later on, the events proved to be prophetic because the rest of the family that remained in Poland perished in the Holocaust.
So it looks to me like somewhere in the 19th century, Jews returned to their homeland,
right,
lived in communities,
right,
and the nation of Israel just slowly emerged out of these communities living together and generally living together in peace.
Right.
And then the nation of Israel slowly emerged.
First of all, we should also mention there were Jews living in the land of Israel throughout the generations. I mean, not all Jews have left Israel. And in the 19th century, when there was a census in Jerusalem, there was a majority of Jews during, when the Ottoman Empire was here, in Jerusalem especially. In Hebron, in Tzfat, in Tiberias, also there were many Jews living there throughout the generations. Jews came after the expulsion from Spain to Tiberias and to Tzfat. That's when they've developed Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. And Jews lived in Hebron all these years until in 1929 they were slaughtered and expelled from them, and they stopped living there. And so in 1947, that's when the UN declared that there will be 2 states here, one Palestinian and one Jewish, and everybody in the Jewish side of the equation danced and was very happy. And the next day, the Arabs started a war against the Jewish settlements that were here. And that started our independence war. And as a result of that war, some Palestinian villages were evacuated, and they've become refugees. We always tend to think that had they agreed in 1947 to the agreement, none of that would have happened. But now we can't really go back. On the other hand, what I do want to say in an optimistic sense, here in Israel, Muslims worship their religion. I told you a few days ago we were near the Temple Mount, one of the most sensitive religious sites in the world. And you have ultra-Orthodox Jews, praying there, and the Western Wall, and the Reform and the conservative Jews praying at the other side, and the Muslims praying on top of the mountain. And it's not ideal from a perspective of messianic goal, but I think because there is such a sense of restraint, there is a place for everybody.
The project that we're working on together, the book project, is where people go back to their holy books and find within them the resources for true faith, which could move people to justice, tolerance. Maybe you could say something about your contribution.
I would say, I think that in the ancient traditions there is a lot of wisdom, because I think the monotheistic traditions emphasize human humility. There is a great sense that it's hard to know what the truth really is. And therefore we have different faith communities, even within each religion, and also with each religion approaching the other religion, knowing that we don't know everything. We have our book of Revelation. We know a lot from that book, but we also know that we don't know. And for that sense, you have to leave space for another faith community to exist, even within your own religion and also vis-a-vis another religion. There is a basic set of values that has to be common to all of us, but there is no sense, like in the modern ideologies of communism, Marxism, Enlightenment, that we know now the key to truth, and if everybody abides by our knowledge, then that's going to be, you know, a key to the best world. There is a sense of humility that sometimes revelation unfolds.
Yeah, part of the reason I decided to write the book is the new atheists think the future for peace and harmony in the world is to forget all that religious tradition.
I think that's very, very dangerous. And in that sense, I could see why the Islamists are rebelling and are creating, but I think that they're going all the way the other way, and they don't see the balance. I think, you know, I'm not the one to say, because I don't know enough about Islam, but I think that Islamic historical tradition has these balances between where to embrace the new science and, you know, new technology, and where to stick to the old traditions. And I think in Judaism we have that, in Christianity, in all the denominations of Christianity we have that. And I think the world, you know, look, we've faced the reason why I think many Jews are coming back to tradition today is because we live in this post-communist world. We've tested the very, very secular view of life. And most Jews saw that it doesn't leave much meaning and much it doesn't leave meaning for people's lives. I mean, let alone that it puts the world in a very dangerous situation without any traditions, without any respect for traditions, for other generations, for older people. But I think that young people feel that they have nothing to strive for in a totally secular worldview. Whereas the religious traditions offer people communities, families, they offer them a context as a civilization. What we need to do is to balance them a little so they don't go out of hand. But I think that they really offer a lot of hope for humanity in the future.